as this is the start of lots to come at the 12th edition of the Human Resources Bootcamp Conference. So as we wait for people to come in, I want to introduce us to why we're here. Obviously, very interesting topic. Great topic, actually. We're here to look at trends to prepare ourselves for 2025. Who's looking forward to what to do in 2025? It's not too early to plan. You know, they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So people who are forward-looking, the futurists, the future of work enthusiasts are looking forward to what will be hot in 2025. So today is really, really exciting. This is also sliding us into what is to be expected at our annual Human Resources Bootcamp Conference coming up 3rd to 4th December 2024. So without further ado, I will, a very quick one. It's going to be, I mean, I do have some slides to share, but it's not really about me. I'm here with Lola Esan. Lola, can you put on your video? And we'll be talking about the trends. Lola? Okay, good. Fantastic. So we will be talking about the trends, unstoppable trends for 2025. What's up in the world of HR? And how can we prepare ourselves for HR in 2025? And we're going to be looking at 5 trends. There's lots of them, but we're going to be looking at the top 5 trends that we expect will shape talent and technology strategies for 2025. I know, Lola, you said I shouldn't share slides, but I want to guide the conversation just so that everyone knows what to expect. So I'm going to just share just for pointers, not because we're not having a conversation, but just so that everyone can see what it is that we are discussing. So just hold on a second. Can you see my slides? Oh, why is it going off and on? Good. Right. So can you see this? Is it clear?
Yeah, it's coming.
Sure.
You have the screen up showing.
Yeah, I noticed. Okay, let me do it again. Because I think, yeah, let me do it again. Okay. Tell me, can you see it now? Okay, let me just stop sharing. Maybe I have 2 windows open. Okay. So let me just be sure that I have the right slides open. Make sure I have the right thing open. Put it on slide share. I'm going to try it one more time. Let's try it one more time. And then I'll see what happens. Try it one more time. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. For some reason, okay, I don't know what's going on. Right, I'm not able to share.
You can actually see it though, or do you want to try? Yeah. It's just that you probably can't project in slide mode, but we can definitely see.
I am actually. I'm actually projecting. It's projected on slide mode, but it keeps going back. So maybe let me just close PowerPoint and then I'll open it again and see whether it helps it. Open it, I'll close PowerPoint, stop my screen share, and then I'm going to open PowerPoint again, and then hopefully it works this time. So I'm going to open PowerPoint again, and let's see, open it again. So meanwhile, anyway, so first things first is, what is your general thoughts on the trends? What should we be expecting in 2025? What will be those things that will shape our talent and technology strategy for 2025? So let's just start from there. Just generally speaking, what are your thoughts around talent and technology strategies for 2025? So Lola, you can just give us a general overview. What should we be looking out for?
Hi, everyone, and congrats, Adora. Huge milestone, for us to be doing this. This is the first virtual before the Big Bang event. So this is exciting to be doing the first with you again. So I'm no futurist, but I think you can imagine that the first thing I would say is AI is upon us. So it's one of those things where already, it was one of those things we talked about, like, oh, it's just some phenomena happening out there. But today, the interaction between AI and automation in HR is clearly something that we can no longer put forward because it's here. We have to get used to the idea that it will shape how we do our work. I think the second thing is also what I envisage would happen is the growth of skills-based hiring. So once upon a time, it was a case of, oh, I need to hire people or there's a job in place. But now we're looking for skills because the shape of jobs is changing faster than anything else. If anything else, once upon a time, we used to talk about soft skills and core skills. But if you look at the World Economic Forum reports, you don't really see those technical skills anymore. A lot of it, so now it's based in terms of what you need to thrive. Of course, it goes without saying, well-being is now a big issue. Before I think I'll just call it BC. We all know what I mean by BC. I don't want to mention the very scary word. But before BC, it was almost a thing to be ashamed of to talk about mental health. You're taking out time to take care of things. You want to distress. But today, those are mainstream topics. So honestly, as HR practitioners or even as employers, if you're putting forward anything on the table and there isn't a well-being value proposition, you're going to have to go back to the table because I think we're done with the job around or the offer of employment. People are looking for experiences now. So it's about shaping the employee experience. And that's going to be a big issue now. I think the next thing is really, it's around, but really what does DEI mean? So diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then some people will add a B, which is belonging. And of course, as you know, the diversity dial started from male, female. And then, of course, it's grown into so many dimensions. Demography, is it okay to label people? How do you cater for different generations at work and even the ones coming? How do you use DEI to differentiate? How do you use it to recruit? So all of those things will change. I think we'll now see people really using unique value propositions. So the way brands would say, here is why we're better than the next competitor. It will no longer be, oh, join me, I will pay you X percentage more. We would now be engaging on a much more qualitative but quality level when it comes to the matrices that would differentiate employment. And then I think we'd also see a growth in personalized learning. And that would challenge a lot of our colleagues who are still in the realm of, oh, the only way you can determine how you learn is when I do your appraisal, and then these are the gaps that come through. So people will now really take or sit in the driving seat of their careers. And then I think one other part, which at least if we talk about Nigeria, because I know we have people joining from different parts of the world, we would definitely see a rise in conversations around the gig economy. Right now in Nigeria, all you have to offer, everybody says it's a full-time contract, permanent contract, all of those conversations will cease to matter because it will now become a warehouse of skills. I want to buy skills. I need skills for this particular area. So I think those are sort of the 6 things I see would shape. And then maybe add a 7th, which is HR tech. So HR tech will now drive a lot of things we do. So once upon a time, you just had to understand traditional HR. But we all need to now move beyond being tech enthusiasts, but we have to now become tech adopters. And that would obviously shape so many realms or areas. But let me pause because I'm sure the slides are up, so it'll be good to engage. Mute. Adora, you're on mute.
On mute. Okay, good. So I want us to take these trends one by one, right? And we're taking 5 just because of time. So let's start with AI and automation. I know you started to talk about HR tech, but let's particularly speak about AI and automation in workforce management. What do you see? These are some of the pointers, but these are especially AI in recruitment, HR analytics, but what exactly do you see and what will be the implication of AI on automation in workforce management?
Thanks, and helping to rein the conversations in. So I think the first thing is we'll see a tremendous reduction in time to hire. most HR people still have that KPI, you know, how long does it take you to fill a vacancy? And then if you now look at the fact that the war for talent is raging, it's now even super competitive to find the right people or at the right price. It doesn't even help when, if you look at, I mean, since we're sort of zeroing in on Nigeria a bit, even though it kind of mirrors global realities. If you look at the fact that the population that is available for work, even though we've got the headcount, in terms of who is ready, in terms of experience, age, skills, because we're now shopping for skills, that pool is not so big anymore. So how fast you are to fill the vacancy helps in a sense to managing some of the challenges you have around transition. I think the second thing AI and automation will do for us is help us better determine best fit. Because right now, you know, when someone leaves a team, oftentimes when you're calculating the cost of the new hire, it includes how much time it takes the person to settle, how much time it takes the team members to integrate with the person. So AI today would even help you do sentiment analysis around your hiring process from the point of view of the team member. So you can now collect data from multiple sources. So lots of speed and input into around. And then I think I want to touch on the fact that bias, even though we're not talking about HR tech today, increasingly a lot of organizations, particularly the large ones, are using the ATS and the likes to go through the recruitment process faster. But what you're seeing is that because a lot of those tools have not emerged from our clients, there is a challenge around the bias. So someone speaks in a certain way or makes a certain nuance, and the system evaluates it as not adequate, or there's a challenge or what have you. So I think we would see a lot more investment in that side. So a lot of those biases will reduce because a lot of us, like I said, will move towards becoming adopters as against being enthusiasts. So we just like it, we think it's good, but we now begin to use it and increasingly evolve what we're doing with it. Fortunately, in our world, we're very adept with technology. Lots of young people are doing different things, but I dare say that any HR person that is still looking at AI as something that is coming, clearly is still in the old world, as Yemi Fashion, our good friend, would say. Don't take your old self into the new normal. So I think that's just a challenge.
I think,
and then of course,
it's interesting because I know that this year we saw quite a number of tools launch, recruitment tools, AI tools, and these AI tools, which they would basically shortlist, they would shortlist, they would do the interviews, and then they would just give you the candidates, the best candidates. We saw the launch of some of those tools, and it's interesting because I was in Ghana last week, and I met with I met with two people whose companies do AI recruitment. So, I mean, this year we were hearing about it, but next year it's on the table. Like, if you're ready to start using these AI tools, they are available from, as in, well, I'm not saying they're available now, but they would be more refined and more available, and more people will be adopting them. And I mean, this person was in Ghana last week, and he talked about the fact that, they're already using, I mean, their software is already ready, and firms have started adopting its use. And I think that's really good. And in terms of AI automation, I mean, we're already seeing chatbots being used to enhance the employee experience and enhance the employee engagement. Even at the conference, I know that one of the people that we're partnering with this year has a AI chatbot tool, which means that HR is available 24/7 now. So no longer employee relations where somebody's with the phone or the help desk, right? The shared services HR help desk. Already now, AI is taking over frequently asked questions,
benefits administration, giving you feedback on even maybe you've launched projects or what have you, giving you that sentiment analysis, determining where your training spend and budget should go. Because I mean, so it's a lot. And honestly, we've got to build our skills around it.
Yeah, and the good thing is that because it analyzes the data very quickly, it can give you, just like you said, imagine doing like a pulse analysis and telling you where or a sentiments analysis, because I do understand that some of the AI tools, of course, they read through the emails and then they can tell you the general sentiments in your organization, and they analyze the data and they tell you how people are feeling. So you don't have to wait for your engagement survey results. There's a sentiments survey already, looking at all the documentation, the emails, the communication within the organization. AI is analyzing that data all the time, and it can tell you on any given day the pulse of your organization. These tools are available already. So it's not like, it's something far-fetched in the future. People are already using this. And I think I have to mention, obviously, Copilot is a big one, which was launched. I know quite a number of organizations who have adopted Copilot, which is a Microsoft. I'm not trying to advertise, but obviously it's a Microsoft.
I use Copilot, and I have to tell you, it's a game changer. So,
yes.
and I think to mention that sometimes the thinking that an AI interface is an expensive, big bang technology is also erroneous, because most email platforms that we use, I think everyone on this call is even able to analyze your productivity. So I know as far back as 2 years, I had been using Viva to help me determine how much time I had for focus. Because then I realized, look, you get pulled in all sorts of places with virtual work. So we actually just need to get a lot more resourceful. And so on a personal level, for even the HR person thriving in the new normal or now normal, you've got to also be very resourceful, because not everything would be told is available. You have to play with it and then evolve your own mechanism for how you use the platform. That's also the beauty of having artificial intelligence. It will do any and everything for you, but it will not take your job away, which is that perception. It does need guidance. So you can use it to your advantage. And some of those tools already exist, even without you investing in some heavy tech platforms.
I mean, it's actually exciting to see, these tools. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that lots of people are using ChatGPT already. And if you use it well, you know that you're like, it's like, everyone like has a personal assistant now. You can do things much quicker. But recruitment has been a particular pain point. And honestly, if I could just get AI to do recruitment and just give me the candidates, I don't even want to see the short list, just give me the best fits. And it's doing that already. So this is actually something to really be excited about. The same thing with the chatbots. I mean, yes, chatbots may seem like it's basic, but it does save HR teams a lot of costs. And to think that they are already available, I mean, not having to pick up and answer, how many days leave do I have? How many, what does the policy on is this? Can I date my colleague? Can I, not having to even answer any of those questions, because the tool answers them for you. So good, let's go to trend number 2. So first one is AI and automation. So let's look at trend number 2. Yes, this is a very interesting one. It actually came up last year in our conference, but it's interesting to see how this has, this is much more relevant, skill-based hiring as opposed to job-based hiring. Lola, what are your thoughts here?
So I think it was something that was inevitable. Because if you even look at the growth in population, the commoditization of knowledge, so it's now possible to be really intelligent if you know what to do with the knowledge available. So we're no longer looking for somebody who comes with one set of abilities. And then most organizations, because we're now transformative in the way we do the work, we're looking for people who have skills that are cross multi-sector, multi-focused, or definitely transferable or adaptable. I think that's the word to focus on. So transferable skills, adaptable skills. Because if you've got technology changing a lot of things, then you can't always go to hire to fill the gaps you need. You need people who can actually transition and fit in the process. And then I think what this has also done for us is that growing differentiation from what is a technical skill, what is a core skill, what is a soft skill. So if you remember back in the day, technical skills were the attitude or the aptitude, things you came out of university or whatever with. But the higher you grew, you were using less and less of those technical skills and more of the skills we called soft skills. But today, those are core skills, because those are the abilities or skill sets that allow you work across multiple functions or diverse environments. So for example, a big one for me is cognitive flexibility or cognitive adaptability. If you're the kind of person who believes, oh, it's only this way and there is no alternative, you will struggle in a world, for example, that is using technology that has been transformed or shaped by transitions or changes. And then, of course, when you talk about the cognitive flexibility, it means you can actually be in Nigeria and understand that there are 10,000 ways of doing things, and it makes it okay. Then, of course, if you look at cost, because it is expensive to actually hire people, it is expensive to keep people. So it is in the interest of any organization to reward people who are multi-skilled. It's not rocket science because, okay, look at, I mean, that's a good example. I'm sure a few of us remember when our aunties, mothers, when they left school, there were 3 career options, largely. You either became a nurse, you went into education, or you were a confidential secretary, and you rose to confidential secretary 1, 2, 3, 4. But nobody talks about that anymore. It's like CVs in the early 2000s. I mean, remember when you and I obviously started back here in Nigeria, our CVs had things like ability to use Microsoft Office skills or Office Suite, internet research skills. Nobody's going to ask you all of those anymore because it is a given, because you need that to do the work. So increasingly, and of course, the human being is evolving. The expectation is that our workplaces will only host evolving or evolved organizations. So again, the wake-up call for anyone on the call is, if your superpower is the fact that you can do comp and bend, you can do recruitment. Well, from our earlier discussions, there is a technology alternative or accompaniment for all of that. So that can be the only thing you bring on board. I think, for example, one of the key skills for an HR practitioner who is interested in cementing their place in the future is data science. You have to understand data science skills. And it's not about, oh, I didn't do math, so I didn't pass math. Hey, not a math lover here. But I have had to learn to use those skills to do my work and even give people the value they want. And then if you even remember that your job is a meal ticket, but it's not your career at the end of the day, because it really becomes a career when you're able to form, what's that word? Is it shape shifters now? People who can change their shape. So you can adapt, you can change whatever the challenges throw comes your way, either from the environment or from the realities of the job. So the inventory of skills is growing, but it's going to become so obsolete very quickly. So continuous education, obsoleting what we know as our skill set is also a priority if you're going to stay in this career for a long haul.
I remember even last year, I remember someone, I think it was Franklin Ali that mentioned, of InterSwitch, that mentioned about even the fact that CVs, instead of having job descriptions, I mean, the way job descriptions would be written would be so much focus on skills description, because it's not about, like, how some job descriptions are so descriptive of, what you do, the activities you carry out, but the focus would now be on the skill sets, because the skill sets are so much more important. So, the focus would be,
the outcomes.
I've called it the skills market.
And the outcomes.
Yes, exactly. And I've called it the future of is the skills market, not the job market, because people will be hiring skills. They're not hiring you for a job. They're hiring you because of your skills. So to me, the job market is dead. The skills market is what is it now. It's what you bring to the table. It's not what job can you do. It's what skills do you have, right? That's the focus. So companies are hiring for skills. The jobs are a job of skills, not a job of activities per se. Absolutely. So definitely that's very, very.
And you're right, because that mindset is actually what would promote the gig economy. Because if you look at the increasing call for personalized experience, people no longer fancy sticking in the same place for 30 odd years, and at the end of the day, you get a mortgage, a house, a fridge, a car, and then a nice party. People are realizing that they can do so much more. So eventually, some jobs would only be possible from guys who want contract. Like I said to some of my clients when they're talking about, oh, how do I compensate my tech workers? They're so mobile, they want to go. And I'm like, that is a role that needs to practice to get better. So giving them step 1, step 2, level 1, level 3 is not interesting, because they need to do to earn. So we would move from this whole sitting down to run through the hierarchy to where is the opportunity to do so many things and hone my skills. And because at the end of the day, the quality of your skills is what will determine your earning power. The inverse of that is when, back in the day, we talked about years of experience. You see job posts saying, we want 50 years experience, we want this experience. But the focus is the depth of experience. And the depth can only come from the skill set you have acquired and how you continue to build or enhance those skill sets.
Yes, and you can put in those hours by working on different projects. That's what builds skills. The fact that you spend hours honing your skills and building your skills, as opposed to, I mean, and that necessarily doesn't have to be to do your 1,000 hours. I think that's about 3 years or so of, yes, it's not 30 years. It's not even 10, right? So definitely the skill-based hiring. And just like you've said, you've linked it to the gig economy, gigs, and that's why there's so much more people working on projects on short-term basis. They are hiring their skills out on a short per term basis. I mean, I even know of people who've left their jobs, but they're still contracting with their firms because they have specific skills that the company wants to keep, but well, they're being borrowed. They are not keeping them, like retaining them as staff anymore, but they want access to be able to you obviously borrow those skills when they want. So that's an interesting one. Let's look at 3. And I think you've already touched on it in the overview, but this is the employee well-being and holistic benefits. So yes, the emphasis on mental health. I mean, today, even just before we got on a call, by an hour, someone was asking me about, they had a problem with a particular employee that they feel is not pulling their weights despite their level of intelligence. I mean, we tried to analyze it. I was, she was like, what should I do? I was like, have you spoken to them? Or, trying to approach them, coach them, this, that. She said, look, I've done all of that. You know how we ended the conversation? I said, you know what? You don't know what's doing people these days. Like so many people have different things that are worrying them, are bothering them. I had to go down the mental health because people don't always speak up, right? So what are your thoughts on employee well-being and holistic benefits? What do you think we'll be seeing? What do you think next year? What would be on the table? I know like quite a lot of firms have adopted EAPs, but how do you think this is going to evolve?
So, and honestly, I'm so glad we're having this and this is mainstream, because the perception that acknowledging you are facing a challenge is a sign of weakness is one that I think we need to do away with. So for example, I'm sure if we took a poll on this call, every single one of us is facing burnout in some shape or form. But we don't have objective provisions. Well, some people do, some don't, for such things. I mean, I know where I work, for example, launched the opportunity to take me time. So it's not your formal leave, but you can actually bank 30 minutes just to catch up on life. It sounded like a weird thing at the time. But honestly, the times when I have consciously tapped into that benefit, I know what is done for being able to take a nap somewhere. But I think, actually looking at the global meltdown in the economy, it is not salary increase that would actually save or preserve EVP. It's really initiatives around well-being. Because for the first time, people are saying, you know what, to hell with your fat-cat paychecks. I don't want it. I just need my brain intact. I want to be able to do those other things that matter to me. And I think the awareness of self, projecting the self, became more pronounced, looking at the fact that all of us alive today have survived one of the most stressful occurrences known to man. At least if you are between 1980, I'm not sure anyone on this call was born in 1918. And that was when we had the last pandemic in its kind. So it has now pushed to mainstream conversations around how do you look after yourself. So what are some of the things we need to be doing for starters? One is to do away with this idea that leave must fall within a particular schedule. Because how do you know when I need to rest? So we need to actually evolve strategies that allow people take into consideration how, and that's why it's work-life integration. We're not balancing it anymore because it suggests one is giving way for the other. So conversations around customized leave benefits is one that needs to be put on the table. I also think conversations around customized well-being, so our healthcare plans, for too long, we all clapped and got excited when we got HMO packages, and I think they're great. But a lot of those HMOs are not extending to, so for example, on this call, the Africans on this call understand Black tax. There is one mother, father, uncle, auntie, sister, cousin who you need to contribute towards their well-being. But all I have today is myself, my spouse, and kids. Then increasingly, you've got a generation that do not want the burden of marriage, and they're opting for very expensive pets and the likes. We don't have provisions for pet insurance, but those things manage, they matter to me.
Yeah.
Then, yes, I like the fact that we've gotten on board EAP. But you see, the EAPs have a challenge around data confidentiality and data protection guidelines. The fact that I am releasing those conversations to a platform paid for by my employer brings some level of, okay, how do I handle this here? So I think we also actually need to, like you find in international climes where a lot of people have therapists. And it's unbelievable. Think about people who live in, the developed countries. A lot of people have therapists that they go and see the way you are going to a gym. They're checking in for a session. So that's like what it kind of needs to get to. Then, of course, there are the low-hanging fruits, like forcing people to switch off. I would say a lot more people mandating. In fact, I am even praying for a future where, for certain execs, you mandate them going on leave. And the opportunity to take leave is part of what you will consider in their preparedness for maybe promotion or next level. Because there are too many horrible bosses who think that, oh, the projection they are putting forward is they want to be top. It's what they're suffering from stress, but they don't know what to call it. So I think the conversations around how the EVP would be one that would see in the next, it's happening already. And then considering the fact that a lot more digital natives are coming into the workplace. All that one that you're telling me I must be back to the office, it's not going to work. That hybrid work, that hybrid proposal is necessary. For those who have work that require that they be at their desk or behind the plant, you will need to then consider enhanced leave benefits, like I talked about earlier on. So it's going to change. The shape of employment will change because people want experiences, as I said earlier on.
And it's interesting because when you really look at it, it's like obviously coming from COVID, there is a huge aftermath. The funny thing is like this is like 4 years after COVID, but there's still a huge aftermath. People are still suffering from the fatigue and the stress and the depression and the grief of the COVID. So there's a lot of factors still, like hovering around people's heads. And just like you mentioned, like firms would have to look at alternatives. Wellness is key. And we're seeing things like financial planning as well. It's not just about emotional wellness. It's also about financial wellness. And financial wellness here is not necessarily earning more. It's just about being able to plan and, in a way that suits you, the lifestyle that you desire. And it's funny that different generations have different ideas of what financial wellness is. Someone who has no plan of buying a house doesn't have the same plan as an older person, like maybe I would say Gen X, maybe before Gen X, I would say baby boomers. If you think about it, it would always be the house. But I look at a lot of young people now, maybe with Airbnb, and they're not even thinking of like buying a house. It's not their priority. So people's needs are definitely very different. Generational needs are different. The way what we regard as wellness or what we regard as, well-being is definitely different amongst generations. And it's interesting you talk about the return to the office. I think that's another one that I really don't understand that trend, Lola. Like the number of organizations that are calling people back. I'm just looking at it like this, as in it's really shocking. The funny thing is that it was predicted. I wrote lots of surveys that predicted that CEOs were going to call back people to the office. But, I did not believe that even with the benefits that people would call back. But Lola, what's going on? Why is this return to office mandates like such a big deal? Why?
So forgive me because I'm going to be speaking from a point of privilege. We are still at home because
I know, but you're seeing what?
Oh, absolutely. And clients are saying, you know what, I want to be able to mandate this. I know I told them 5 days, but I want them back. The honest truth is, let's really be realistic. What you're seeing is a breakdown of trust.
Yeah.
And it's on so many levels. Remember before we were mandated to now sit at home, i.e. because of the pandemic, the concept that someone can be in their house and they are doing the work was very alien. But when the trigger happens, like when I say to people that, look, VUCA, you know, you say all those, but VUCA for me, that V is not volatile, it's velocity. Quickly you can change and adapt. So for example, I say, I'm speaking from a point of view of privilege. We are still at home because we've done the stats and the data is showing that our people, our demographics do not see any benefit. The commute is stressful. But it has ended up being one of our successful years. But guess what? Our consequence management system is top notch. So you can't have one without the other. If you say you want to be at home all through, then it means you have to account. So we account for it. So that means I can't be looking for you, for example, during the workday and your Teams is unreachable. I can't reach you on the phone, your email. So there's a process to these things. And that's why I say a few employers don't want the added stress of putting those investments in place, the tech investments in place to enable you run the office digitally. But companies that have the opportunity to do that, they're adopting it. Now, when I talk about the breakdown of trust, that is closely linked to the national culture. Unfortunately, there are some organizations that the leadership is of a certain mindset. And that's because they don't believe that, oh, you can be doing the work if they cannot see you. And so they have obviously transposed that mindset on the organization and individuals who work there.
And you know, it's fun.
Work there. So you're saying?
I said it's funny because, you see, there are different styles of it. There are those who were on 2, who are going to 3, like 2 days on 2 days on site, and they're now going to 3. And then there are those who were on 3 or 4 who are now going to 5. Like, you know, I'm like, what's with the extra day? Because I know someone who's going from 2 days to 3 days. And they told them in January there will be 3 days. And I asked, why are you guys going back to 3 days? And he said, because they did a benchmark and all their competitors have gone back. And I'm like, gosh, is that the only reason?
You know, the point around, we would need to become data scientists. Because unfortunately for us, and that's why that table that we've been looking for all these years, it's going to continuously be difficult to get that table. When we should even be saying that we should be the table on which they're having the meetings, but we're still looking for seats at the table. So not HR, no meeting. But unfortunately, we also need to school and educate ourselves. What is happening with your competitor pool? It can be a guide, but it can never take the place of what the data is telling you. And that data is both intrinsic and extrinsic. I talk about my own experience. We looked at our demographics, largely Gen Zs, millennials. We looked at our books, doing very well. We looked at our engagement scores, still very high. We looked at compliance, so our policies, still very high. Our competitors have 2 days. We don't, and this is Nigeria. And it's working. But of course, managers have been trained to manage virtual teams and we're empowered. So it's a process. Even the process of moving people from virtual to 2 days to 5 days to no days, it's also a process. Because if you do it knee-jerk, you will get people who say, okay, I will resentfully resume, but that internet that you're providing me, trust me, I'm looking for work with it. So but now that said, though, having spoken on the part of the employees, let's also be honest that some of us, the employees, were not trying. That credibility, that reliability index is low. And this case of all is suffering for the sins of a few. There are some people that just not understood that it comes with enormous responsibility and accountability to be working remotely. Because nobody is tracking whether you're doing 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. It's a question of, and then of course, back to our conversation on skills and outcome-driven work. It's now no longer about, I'm seeing you, you're at your desk. It's about the work we agreed you would do. Have you done it well to the level expected? Are you accountable and are you yourself? So I say clients that are struggling that, as we know, to whom much is given, much is expected. There's a certain level of responsibility and accountability that comes with asking for fully remote work. And are we ready to deal with the consequences? So chicken and egg situation, but I frankly think, even looking at the cost of commuting to work now in a place like Lagos, transport costs have gone up and salaries have not necessarily risen as far as the cost. We have got to evolve creative ways of keeping the people we have. And some of the winning strategies will come from doing things differently. Hybrid work is certainly important, but don't go hybrid if you don't have a strong technology infrastructure or backbone. if you haven't used data, if you haven't asked your people what they want, you know, this point of deciding for management like their kids, I mean, except for employees, I see their kids, it's gone. And then 3, consequence management. You have to be ready to account for what you're doing with the opportunity to work remotely. It's a benefit, it's not a right.
Yes. I mean, I love that. I mean, it's definitely a benefit that people appreciate. The flexibility is one of the greatest benefits that one can offer a workforce, especially because it's inclusive. It's inclusive for females, it's inclusive for people living with disabilities. It's a very inclusive way of working because it allows people who ordinarily would not have an opportunity in a traditional 9-to-5 job to work. So it's a fantastic opportunity. But like you also said, it requires discipline and it requires technology reliance. It relies heavily on technology. So any firm who has not adopted collaborative tools cannot work remotely. And any individual who does not have the level of self-discipline cannot work remotely effectively. So it's a couple of things, just like you said, have to be put in place for it to be effective. And people are struggling because they have not put all those things in place. They have not made those investments, and those incentives are not readily available. So it is, I think the key thing is getting organizations who want to work remotely to be ready. Because honestly, Lola, it's when people abuse this benefits, I don't want to call it rights, it's a lot of other people suffer because of a few. And is it abused? Yes. And I've seen it abused several times. I've seen people who think because they are home, it's an off day, or people who hardly put in, you're looking for them, just like you said. You can't get hold of them because they want to work when they want. It doesn't matter, to be honest. I'm all for results. However, when the results don't show, you start looking for people, right? When the results are not showing, that's when you start looking for the person. And unfortunately, some work is timed. Not all work can be result-based. For example, if you're in customer service, it's 9-to-5. You can't say, oh, I will do it in the night when your clients are calling, between 9 and 5. You have to be at your desk. So if you decide not to be available at that time, you're going to skip a lot of emails and not work. So it's a very interesting one, but it's this return to office. Honestly, watching it unfold has been very, very interesting. Let's go to the last trend so that we can take questions after this. And I think, again, you've touched on it. We've started to touch on it in little ways. This whole diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, I know earlier this year, there was this whole hula around equity. How, focusing more on inclusion, the equity, Lola, what are your thoughts on this?
So I'm definitely E for equity and not E for equality. And let me use a simple illustration. Okay. So there is a vacancy to be filled. We've always known for years that it has to be merit, competence, and the likes. But because we are trying to meet certain stats, then we say, oh, okay, I'm going to just put the woman there. It then becomes tokenism, and it's not beneficial. And in the long run, it is going to prevent the competent women who have bothered to also add on top of first I'm a woman and then other things. It would eventually result in reduced opportunities. So equity, of course, is making sure that, hey, I mean, what's the analogy? The one about the shoes. Everyone gets a pair of shoes, or everyone gets a pair of shoes in their size. And there's a question of, okay, should it be the same shoe or the shoe based on your shoe size? I mean, there are those interesting analogies out there. But I think the most important thing about DEI is the respect value. And as you know, respect does not look at whether male, female, boy, girl, and what have you. It is the fact that any human being deserves to be included, considered, catered for, accommodated where necessary and possible. But of course, your right stops where the right of someone else starts. And that's something to Now, touching on a rather risque part of DEI, which obviously because of our laws in Nigeria, we cannot speak to. Allyship is very important. And why is allyship important? You now function and work in a global organization, the world is a global village, was what Marshall McLuhan said. So that means that it is not enough to say, Nigeria, this is the thinking, this is what we do, so I don't support it. You will lose out in the long run in the global economy. So we must learn how to, protect. And a lot of people have, what's the word? A lot of us are not guarded when we drop these things like it's the way it's. So there's a need for education. To first of all, expand our mindset and understanding of the possibilities that exist. Education allows us even then know when to put your understanding or express your position in context, because not every mindset is suitable for all environments. And then if you look at the belonging part, which is the additional B you see, it means everyone has a right to be here. Now, what are the things I think we should be paying attention to in Nigeria on the DEI spectrum? Nigeria to today, we still demonize things like being neurodiverse, autism, MS, cerebral palsy. And there is a place for individuals who have such challenges. If you think about it, when we were growing up, when we didn't have labels, there was always that one child in your primary school or secondary school who didn't talk like everyone else, but they were super smart. Because research is showing that these are superhumans who have evolved because they do not conform to our general understanding of society or the world. We label them and say, hey, they must be cast off. Same for people who have physical challenges. Till today, Nigeria and most of Africa, because I do work across, we are erecting buildings in 2024 where things like ramp access, braille on the elevator, braille on ATM machines, braille on packaging is supposed to be a plus or something we applaud. So even if we're not going to get to the end of the spectrum for what DEI is, the whole male, female, women is tired, which is why I personally do not support the one day a year to celebrate something. It's like, eat a cupcake, get a sugar high and forget about the real issues. There are other things we need to start championing. So for example, what are the kind of stats I think we should start reporting? How many people on your payroll in your employee population are neurodiverse? Because what that even does is prepare your employees for a world where everyone will not look like me. And then you know what we say about representation. A lot of people are silently dealing with children or family members who are neurodiverse. And the fact that I'm working in a place that tells me that there is no future or possibility for these people is not one I think anyone can handle. So those are the kind of DEI perspectives we need to be accommodating. Our customer service, our switchboard, our admin or store management can be run by individuals who have sight challenges. We just need to accommodate. So it's not for me, especially in our part of the world, accommodation as against, okay, I'm male and female, we've got 10 women. No. And then, of course, we need to start tracking things like when you do your graduate trainee program, how many people actually stick around to make it to your management cadre? But right now we're in the realm of it's time to fill a senior position. We're looking for people from outside. Those are the kind of DEI stats that matter to me. What is the conversion from graduate trainee to management? What is the conversion? So, and again, stats would show you, particularly for women, when women begin to approach the age where they're starting families, it is also the age or the time where they are ready for managerial positions. And the organization it does not have that accommodation. That to me is what DEI should be, and not the male-female that we're tracking. I put a woman there, but the woman isn't able to empower or shift or change anything. So it's like when people are celebrating certain sectors have women at the top, I'm excited, I'm happy, because hey, it's representation. But after that representation, what next? Take a poll of who else is on the management team. How many people have come up? And then DEI for me is now even having institutionally sponsored mentorship and coaching programs. So right now, coaching is that thing that you must go out and pay for. But the role of the leaders should actually shift to becoming mentors and coaches. So that for me is how I see this trend shifting and changing. Yeah, male and female, we're happy. But today that you now have the possibility of having up to 15 genders, that cannot be what we're
And it's interesting because I guess one of the big trends, obviously, is the focus on inclusion and belonging. Like diversity was all about compliance. People have past that game, you know, like, oh, how many men, how many women, how many people with living with disabilities? You know, it was that box ticking exercise and people have ticked it. But, you know, inclusion has always been the big one, which we've never really gotten around, right? And I know it's not even, it's not restricted to Africa. The same issues are in the UK, where inclusion is the big one, because it's okay to get people of color, people living with disabilities into a room, but how do you make them feel? Like, what accommodation do you make? Do they really feel like they are accepted
Part
here?
of
Can
it.
they be themselves? Yeah. Because
Or
at the
one
end of
of
the day, yeah,
one of the
having people
items
there is
for
not it.
sustainability
Yes.
reporting. So I think the solutions
Yes.
we had talked earlier on when I gave the introduction remarks around the focus of learning and development will become self-directed. But I actually think instead of the regular trainings you make mandatory, trainings on DEI, cognitive, identifying and dealing with your bias and things needs to be important. But for me,
Yeah.
if we're even going to designate any quota for anything, I think that quota should be neurodivergence, disability. Those are just, and it's representation, because if you're seeing the
Yes.
person at work and what they can do, it's support for you to say, okay, you know what, that child, that relative that is struggling, there's a potential. I saw some stats recently which really spooked me out. And the stats is saying that by 2025, 50% or up to 50% of children that will be born would have some form of autism diagnosis. So that's the future talent. But if you
Yeah.
ask today who understands autism, autism is just now a
Yeah.
label for anything. Once you don't think like
Yes.
me, talk like me, look like me, respond to
Yeah.
questions like me, then you're autistic. And that's where it ends. So the
Yeah.
conversations around who is talent needs to change. First class is good, it's great, but it's only for 2 years. After that, what else? What skills are you bringing to the table? And we need to actually mandate people to learn skills of how to deal with people who probably are different to you or function differently than you do.
Okay, so I think that's the last trend. We'll take some questions. I will go into the chat now. I'm sure there's lots of questions. So we definitely have to take those now. But just before we go into questions, I just want to remind everyone, early bird closes this Sunday for the conference. Please feel free to go on conference.kendorconsulting.com to check out the conference this year, the topics, the speakers, and everything that we have planned for this year's conference. So looking into the chats, there's so many questions. So please, I know that so many people were like dropping their comments as they go. So please, we're looking at, people were dropping comments. Okay. So any questions? Do we have questions around this? And while we wait for some of the questions, yes, I think I can see, what can I see? Any questions? Okay, someone is saying that remote work shouldn't impact leave days necessarily. Staff still need time off, even when working remotely. That's an interesting one. Do you think people take less time off when they're working remotely? They don't. Stats have shown that there's less sick days, definitely. People on remote, they don't go off sick.
Absolutely. And these are data sets you can track. How many people days or sick? Because most times when you book, say, okay, I'm having a little headache, but I think I use the opportunity to quickly run one errand or two. So the point is not to make people have to lie to be themselves. And that's the point of work-life integration. I will still do the work, just that this 9 a.m. is not working for me. But of course, people have to be accountable. And with the conversation around leave days is mandated and policy driven, if that makes sense. There's a legal basis for giving people time off. But even within remote work, it's not every time you want to be plugged in. And if anything else, one of the challenges we started having with the rise of remote work is the fact that you're always switched on. So switching off is actually important, where you can, like, for example, I had to turn off my, that when Teams is ringing, because I realized that after some time, I was hearing it everywhere in my sleep. So I just had to. So it is still important to not confuse it that being on remote work means you are on holidays. If anything else, we work longer hours.
Yeah, we do. People tend not to go on. I mean, sick days, I know people tend not to take when they are at home, not as much as when, people used to go to the office. So that one, I definitely have seen the stats of quite a number of organizations. People tend not to go on sick leave. But leave days, I think people still take their leave days, and they should be encouraged
They should.
to take their leave days. Yeah. So any other questions? Okay, I'm seeing some comments. Oh, nice to have you. Esther, I just saw a comment from Esther. Yes, thank you. She says, well done, Lola. Well done. Okay, any questions, please? Any other questions that we take? I hope everyone has enjoyed. I mean, I definitely very insightful conversation so far. I'm Lola, of course. I know this is your area, so I knew that you'd be the best person to have this chit chat with.
Thank
So
you.
just yes, definitely. So any questions? Let's just look through the chats, see whether there's questions for us. Oh, someone says, with the reduced time to hire, how can you still ensure you do background checks? Lola, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, one thing AI has done is it has now shifted focus to high value activities. So that background check, for example, is a high value activity, as against checking the CV that the person went to so school, because you can now skip through that part, get the person to do a first video interview where you're not even there, so you save time. The person answers the questions they see, drop it. You can obviously then get AI analyze whether they were skipping through pages. It does all of that for you. So you focus on the real issue, which is this person I want to hire, whether they say they are who they are, kind of thing. So that is a value-adding activity when it comes to recruitment, because you can be good on paper, but who you are when you're not at work is a bigger issue, and could be also, and even anything else, the risk and compliance benefits to be able to do the background checks. So it doesn't negate it in any way. If anything else, it's helping you get there faster.
Interesting. Oh, hi, Lara. I just saw a message from Hello. Someone just asked a very interesting question, and he says, how do you determine leave days in respect to remote work days? No. They're not. This is some of the issues. Remote work days are work. They have nothing to do with leave days. Leave is leave. On remote work days, you're supposed to be working 9 to 5. So they are not, they're mutually exclusive.
Switched in, so I should be able to find you within that period, either on the company portal, on Slack, on whatever it is.
Exactly.
You can't just switch off and say you're working remotely. No, you must be available on the company platform.
And it's funny because some people think that when they're working remotely, they're off. You're not off. Which is part of the problem that we have with remote work, right? It shouldn't impact, okay, someone even tried to answer, it shouldn't really impact your leave because you're still working. Remote work shouldn't be taken for granted. We're definitely still working. A question on how do you ensure compliance with employees on hybrid work as some staff are disconnected from their duties? Lola, you talked on this. You spoke on this. You can't do remote without tools. Yes.
Exactly. And then there's the consequence part. If you're asking for it, these are the implications. So using myself as an example, every Friday at EY, it doesn't matter your level, you must submit your timesheet. Now, missing your timesheet is a cardinal sin because it impacts you. It impacts your pay. And you signed up for it. So you see people running to say, please help me submit my it. I mean, you see those jokes on Instagram of consulting firms. That timesheet, if you miss it, you are in trouble. So that's one. And then two, of course, understand your demographics. So if you have individuals but these days everyone has some form of digital appreciation. So one is have clear policies. Two is make people have work tools. So the same way you give me tools if I was working physically, it's the same thing. I might have a computer and all, but do I have the templates? Do I have the forms? Do I have all of those, the collaborative tools to do the work? Then the third thing is actually checking with people that is actually what they want to do and that it's still working for them. And then the fourth thing is consequence management. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it because all you need is one person to break it and then it becomes the norm. It just falls like a set of dominoes. So those things in place, constantly checking, is definitely a good way to check if you're ready for remote work. But saying that your competitor has gone back, I don't know about that. That can be the only measure.
Yeah. And it's funny, I think Adiola asked a question about potential risks in using AI for recruitment. That's a very interesting one. In fact, there are risks for AI, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the things I was discussing at the conference I went to in Ghana was that, you see, we're saying AI this, AI that, but AI needs to be guided. In fact, there's a lot of ethical issues around AI. The other day we were talking
Absolutely.
about in the bid to use AI, a lot of people are uploading confidential company information on ChatGPT and on AI, because AI is like a huge database, right? And then imagine people want to do wonderful things in their work, and then they're taking, very confidential data and, asking ChatGPT questions around it and everything. Of course, there are some risks. I mean, some of the risks I know that I've discussed of course, researched about is around discrimination. AI systems can also unintentionally discriminate, because remember, it's a
Bias,
database, right? They present the data that they were trained on. It's like machine learning. The data in AI is based on like the way it responds is based on the data it has. So AI, it may not have your own bias, but it has its own biases based on what it has been trained on. Yes.
And then there's
So,
even
and obviously, yeah, so at the end of the day, you can't, and then of course there's the data privacy concerns, which is what I've already talked about. AI relies on data sets, and it may include sensitive information about candidates. So we definitely have to ensure that data protection laws, such as like in GDPR, right? So,
and then
yes,
Nigeria
because
has
we have to
NDPR.
safeguard, yes, exactly. So we have to safeguard around that unauthorized access, because AI can get that kind of information and use it, so those are some risks. And AI hallucinates. It can give you
Hallucinates,
predictions.
totally.
AI can send you on missionary journey. You will go left, you will go right. So
but you see,
I
Adora,
always
the
say,
solution to that is the training.
It's the training,
like anything else, we must get training on how to use AI. I remember when we launched Copilot. Before you could activate your license, you have to take training, and it tells you what it is, what is not. And then it tells you the risks. So if you're doing it, understand that. So, and that's where we need to get to, ChatGPT is here, but how are you using it? So I don't think being afraid of it or ignoring it will really serve us well, because it's here to stay. You can't run away from it. You have to use it. Even the recruitment and the biases of discriminating because your name sounded somehow, all those issues with the ATSs, we have to actually use it for it to get data to get better. So it's almost like you are stuck with not using, or we start investing to develop our own.
Yeah. I think you also need to know the laws of the country that or wherever you're operating, and then also the firm that you're operating. What are its laws, if there are any laws or policies around AI, because you still must remain within your regulatory framework. Another thing is, like, I still think I'm still as much as I love technology, I still believe in that last human touch, because I think you might also have a reputation for, like, if you do everything with AI or a machine or a robot, I think your firm may gain a reputation for not having a human face. Like,
touch.
people, when people get to know that, it's AI that does their recruitment.
I agree.
Yeah, it may make people just think. I think we need to use it, but we always, just like I always say, it's an assistant. At the end of the day, you are the supervisor or you're the manager. You have to check its work. Otherwise, I mean, if you leave it to do from A to Z, well, if there are any consequences or backlashes, you still have to be accountable. So I would say that last bit of check, I mean, I would say,
the burden is on you to
human,
get the confirmation.
yes,
Yeah.
it is.
But
It
just
is
to
on you.
mention, I think different countries are coming up. So, for example, Nigeria is currently working on our AI guidelines, which the Minister of Communication and Technology is doing, and he's brought experts from different ecosystems. Now, what is interesting is when I look at the people who are on the committee, I don't think I saw too many HR people, but at least it's good that we're evolving some governance around it, because, as you said, AI needs governance. It's here to stay, but it needs governance. Organizations also need guidelines for what you can do or not do with it, because, as you said, it's an open source. Anyone can add anything. You can actually deliberately create hallucinations because you're trying to maneuver a thought process, which is also the issue of fake news and all. So it's here to stay, but we have to, as you said, it's a companion, it's an assistant. It should not replace the human touch and can certainly never replace the human touch.
Okay, so Loveland says that you didn't speak on the growth on personalized learning, knowing that self-paced learning is still a struggle. You didn't speak on that. You know, you talked about the growth in personalized learning.
Okay, so I'll just touch on equity because we were focusing on the 5 trends, but I mentioned it in the course of my conversation. So personalized learning is just really saying that at the end of the day, the same way the individual decides when they join you, you know, people are looking for experiences. Any single thing that is on the table in relation to their employment has to be experience-based. So, for example, I'm sorry, I talk a lot about EY because that's where I am. The investment we made in learning is phenomenal. And again, looking at data, it's telling us what are the things that are driving people to look for experiences. So, for example, in the course of the pandemic, paid for by the company, I practiced my French and got to proficiency level. I learned bead making. I perfected my baking techniques. It did not stop the fact that I was still a consultant expected to grow my HR skills. But even better, the learning framework actually rewards your own self-selected and self-directed because it acknowledges the fact that it is the complete human being that comes to work with you. And part of that sum total experience is to provide opportunities or platform for the individual to be themselves in full. Yeah. So as an organization, one way can be, you know what, we need you, which is actually what we do. In a year, no matter how senior you are expected to have a minimum of 40 hours learning. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO. That 40 hours, you must get it. If you don't get it, they'll penalize you. Because at the end of the day, you're selling knowledge. It's knowledge that allows you to adapt or thrive in the world today. Now, from that 40 hours, 20 hours is for the company. And that involves our compulsory trainings around our clients, risk management, and then technical work. The balance is for you because we recognize that for you to actually last in the organization, you need to also pay attention to things that matter. And that is where learning should get to. It should not be at the end of your out. Then your line manager says, okay, I see that you don't write this report well. Oh yeah, go and take training on report writing. It has to be joint. The same way you are acknowledging or identifying my annual goal setting. That's the approach to learning. But if you've also hired adults, you also need to respect that adults have certain needs and interests. And whether we like it or not, in the 24 hours of a day, we actually spend more of the productive hours at work. So that means that a large part of who I am or who I will be is going to come from the experiences that are shaped by the work I do. But that said, caveat, your company is not your parent. So your company also doesn't owe you 100% giving you exposure to all the learning you need. You people that your company has not sent to HR Bootcamp, pay for it and go and learn how to evolve. You have to also selfishly want to also learn and grow. So a lot of that personalized learning is also considering the things that matter to you, that are important to you, and then you investing in that development. And that's sometimes where I think employees also fall short. You're waiting for the company to do everything, forgetting that you are building your skills, not just for the company, but for career longevity. So a lot of mindset is required, shift is necessary. But honestly, people are looking for experiences. Let's remember that, not employment. So if all you have to offer me is employment, nah.
Okay, I mean, I've seen some comments. I think it looks as if we could go on here. Okay, I think I see quite a couple of people that we know. Temi Ajibola saying hello, and so a question. Thank you. So I think we'll just take like 2 questions, and I know it's because we're out of time, but I still see that people are still on the call, and of course, you know,
they should attend the conference to continue the discussion.
Yes, so exactly, because this is just the start. So exactly, attend the conference, register. December. Exactly, because a lot of these conversations, like I said, are continuing at the conference. You know, there's much more insights. All these trends, we're definitely discussing them at the conference. So the other question, I just want us to take like maybe 2, because there's some really good questions here. Well, I think one of them we've already addressed on AI, confidentiality and privacy about employee data, people using it. I think I already mentioned it. People, you have to, if you are breaching the policy, And you see, the funny thing is a lot of companies don't have policies on AI. I guess, Lola, that's where people have to start. That's where companies have to start. HR, you need to put policy on AI use, because people are already breaching it because there's no policy. They're not breaching it, right? There's no policy. So they're not breaching it. But there are some things that you might consider unethical, because in terms of data privacy, if people are uploading company data onto AI, then they are obviously breaching laws like GD, or you said they're breaching data privacy laws. But you need to make people aware. And then, of course, someone asked whether there's training on how to use AI. There is. In fact, there are quite a number of frameworks on how to use AI, not just as an assistant, but obviously to help you with different kinds of work. If you know how to, prompt engineering is a major skill set now. Imagine a couple of years ago, nobody ever heard of prompt engineering. Prompt engineering, you have to know how to use, to prompt.
Right /dash, what you want to report, all of those things.
Yes. If you don't know how, because a lot of people, some people have not used AI at all because they don't know how to use it, or they're using it incorrectly, and AI is just giving them the worst type of information. You can use AI so wrongly that it makes you even look so much, you're just going to get yourself in trouble. I've seen people already getting in trouble using AI because they don't know how to use it correctly. AI can give you wrong information. AI can make you look like you don't even know what you're talking about because it gets the data. Yes. So those type of things, definitely, I would say that people need to get trained. And yes, more and more, we see that there are different firms offering training on AI, prompt engineering, and things like that. Somebody's asking about there's just so many questions here, Lola. I don't know how we'll pack these questions. So are you people ready to
come
stay?
and if they want you to answer, you would, part of your post-conference documentation is the answer to the question. So they should come.
I know. So I mean, there's just so many questions, Lola. It's like, people don't want to go to sleep. I thought that people will be sleeping in the night. Oh, hi. Okay, so for those working or interested in working in multinationals, how do they integrate into the DEI system of those cultures? E.g., you mentioned that some DEI recognize the different genders that aren't male and female. Lola. Okay, how do you integrate? You better integrate.
The first thing is you must,
or be integrated.
You must obey the laws of the land that you live in, right? So we will obey the laws of the land, but we are not going to close our eyes to the fact that other realities. So let me even just tell you a funny story quickly. Creative engagement once, and one of my colleagues on the other side from somewhere else kept talking about, so let's say for purposes of discussion, talking about a Lola. And so every time the conversation came up, oh, how is Lola doing? Oh, Lola just did this. So I thought, and in all honesty, so this had gone on for a while. So whenever we connect, oh, how is Lola doing? Lola is fine. Then one day we're on a call, and then the person goes, oh, Lola is here. Come say hi. So I expected to see maybe a child, come through. But Lola was a very lovely, fluffy ginger cat. But she's a pet, she's a cat parent, a cat mom. So imagine if I had got, cat is witchcraft, cat is this. It damages the kind of relationships we will go on to have. And that is what cognitive adaptability or flexibility does. In my world, cannot be your child. But in their world, cat is a full child that does everything a child does. So it's the same thing. You must school yourself with knowledge so that you can operate at the right time. And it's not all the time that you get a prompt to say, this is the right way to act. You must gather. So your company sends you for a conference in the UK. Of course, in that conference, there will be cis, him, her, whatever it is people call themselves, or even no gender. Then the person tells you, oh, I am he, she, and then you go he, she. You can't do that anymore in the world you're in. And it's not going to be an excuse that, oh, the country you're operating, we don't have that. So we must acquire global insights so that we can constantly be locally relevant. So relevant in global environment, relevant in the local environment. And that is where knowledge comes from. So I'm sure I have answered the many questions you wanted me to answer and the points you wanted me to touch on. Expand your mind, but obey the laws of the land.
Yeah, I think so. So someone, Ijoma, is asking about the skills market, over and above the job markets. He's saying like, so where does it the issue of I've seen this happen before in my work life, your experience coming, if we are now giving precedence to skills. So he's concerned, doesn't experience count? Can't, over skills?
But can you have skills without the experience of using the skills? They go hand in hand.
Yes, I think so.
I think what we are not in support of, at least the conversation we're having this evening, is someone comes to you with their shoulders high and says, I have 20 years experience.
Yes,
but 20 years experience doing what? Just marking calendar.
Doing
Today is
what?
my anniversary.
Yeah.
Doing what? So it is not
Exactly.
possible to see somebody who came 2 years post-graduation, but has bothered to be very busy every day. And the person, I remember one time, I had a very interesting conversation with my line managers in one of my previous lives. And the person used to always bully people on the basis of, I have 100 years, I have that. So one day I was like, you know what? There's a difference between years of experience and depth of experience. And please give me my flowers because I've done the work and evidence. If it is the run them. So it's not a case of experience. We get too hung up on this experience. You only build experience by doing, which is where the skills come in. You can't do if you don't have skills.
And the quality of your experience matters. There's this thing I always say. I mean, 1 times 20, you can have 1 year experience 20 times because you're not learning and you're not developing yourself. That's still 20 years experience, but you actually have 1 year experience. 1 times 20 is still 20. And then somebody can have 2 times, 2 times 10 in the sense of 2 years, but solid 10 projects. That is their 20 years experience because in their 2 years, they worked on solid 10 projects. I mean, Lola, you know what I mean in consulting, when you work on 10 projects for 2 years and
you're baked,
what that does to you.
Everything. And which is why 2 years can indeed be the new
only
10
2
years.
years.
So let's stop telling people, oh, you are moving too much. Oh, you are junior. This role is for 10 years experience. But if the person has done the work back to back, and as they say, if he didn't day, he didn't day. So we need to kind of get into that.
I think the biggest fear is that 1 year experience 20 times because the person really has just 1 year of experience because they didn't learn, they didn't build on it. Every year they just repeat. Every year they just repeat. And that is what we should be running away from because you don't really have any skills.
And then there's the one on LinkedIn. So let's talk about those ones. The ones that the role they did and what they put on LinkedIn. Some people should also manage their skill set, the skills they have. Let's talk about those ones quickly, So, because AI can also AI you out. When we check what you put and then we see that. So let's just put that one there on the side.
Yes. Okay, I think we'll just wrap up. I know, gosh, there are just so many questions. I'm really, really sorry. And maybe we'll have to do this again, because we still have time. The conference is still about 5 weeks to go. I think we actually plan to have 2 pre-conferences. So we definitely can do part 2. And the HRBC team, can you just copy those questions? Let's copy it, pack it, and we'll continue the conversation. Lola, it looks like we need to do part 2 because this is obviously we didn't
bring more of our friends on board for part 2.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe exactly. So let's I think that'd be a good idea. So have more people.
I mean, that would be wonderful. There's still over 100 people here. So maybe the next one we would obviously carry on the conversation on something similar, and then of course bring more people on board. So the more the merrier. Somebody's already saying I support part 2.
And they should register to get the Zoom link for part 2.
Yeah, so some people, their plan is to come here, do part 1, do part 2, and we won't see them on 3rd and 4th. No. We must see you on the 3rd and the 4th of December. So the slides, everybody's getting the slides. So we're going to send the slides to everyone. It has Lola's profile and my profile in it as well. So feel free to reach out to us on it. So you're all going to get the material so that you don't forget those 5 unstoppable trends shaping your talent and technology strategy for 2025. One thing about the bootcamp, I mean, Lola, you can testify to that, is that even if you didn't attend any training all year round, even if you've done nothing that has really developed you, you can just come for your crash course. It's like, your crash course for the year, your major learning and development spend, and then you just prepare yourself for 2025. it's always a good way to end the year and of course prepare for the next year, which will be starting. So yes. So on that note, we'll say goodbye, Lola. Thank you. Always a pleasure. I knew that it was going to be fun and exciting and insightful and conversational, which it was. And people are hailing you. Read the chat. Stop doing Madam there. Read the
thank
chat.
you so much. I see all my people on it. Thank you so much. Nice to see everyone again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And there's so many people from, I know we didn't get to see, but I know there are quite a number of people from out of the country. So maybe they can just drop. I know that this is Pan-African. It's not just Nigerian. There are quite a number of people from Ghana, Namibia, and so please, definitely. Yes, somebody's saying I'm not in Nigeria already. So yes, I know there are quite a number of people not here. Yes, there is virtual option. Definitely. There is the virtual option. I can see, yes, Ophelia. Yes. You know,
if it's Gloria,
I know she's from Ghana.
Oh, Namibia as well. Nice.
Okay, yes, exactly. I know that there are quite a number of people that are from us. So we are looking forward to you. If you can't join us in person, please, virtual option is available. Go on the website, conference. Oh, Rita, oh, nice to see you. Rita, we just came back from the GCHR Africa conference in Ghana. Rita, oh, lovely, fantastic conference, by the way. Please make sure we plan that to be there next year. Thank you very, very much. Take care, everyone, and have a great evening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.